This conference will now be recorded.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, can you take the roll?
Councilmember Fox,
Present.
Councilmember Casberg,
Here.
Councilmember Boyle,
Present.
Councilmember Strobin,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cerveny,
Present,
Mayor Thornton.
absent, excused. Thank you. Brings us to citizens' public comment. Clerk, can you please call up the public comments from the audience to begin?
Dennis Hill,
Greetings, Mayor Pro Tem, council members and citizens. I'm sharing with you tonight a little bit what occurred last council meeting, so bear with me here, it won't be long, but one of our council members chose not to follow state protocol regarding what should be discussed during the open session of a city council meeting. What was shared was not the issue. It was how it was presented and when, in my estimation. The city council had already voted and given the mayor and police chief specific direction earlier this year regarding finding a solution to provide police coverage for La Center. Bringing up alternative solutions or ideas regarding alternative police force scenarios during the city council meeting, I believe, was inappropriate. New or suggested ideas of this nature are great and appreciated, but they should be given and discussed with the mayor and police chief outside of city council chambers. This includes the idea of bonuses for police officers. This is item particularly should be discussed only during the executive session of city council. The mayor, after discussing with them their ideas or concerns, will determine appropriate next steps. My concern is that our new city council members may see this as an okay way to conduct city business and deal with questions or concerns they may have. To me, this puts the city council at risk of being seen as unprofessional and not working together for the best interests of the city. The state training administered by Association of Washington Cities that each member of the council is required to complete clearly outlines the appropriate conduct for city council members. The city has also conducted similar city council member training led by Bronson Potter, our city attorney, covering the do's and don'ts of conducting business as a city councilor. During my term as city councilman, I had many questions and ideas, and I found it very easy to meet with the mayor and the police chief to share my ideas or concerns. I would encourage each council member who has ideas or concerns to reach out to the mayor, sit down with him personally, and go over those things with him. This is not only the appropriate way, but the best way to conduct city business at least the way I believe. And this is the best way to get the answers that you may be looking for. Thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Dennis. Good reminder for all of us.
Al Filla,
Al Fella, 152 West 15th Street. Meals on Wheels. You got 30 to 40 people that meet up here every Thursday, and you got some gals that do a real good job. There's two of them sitting right there. And now you want them, or the city wants them, to take down all the stuff they put on the walls and take it down every time. That's nonsense. According to Al, If you look at what Meals on Wheels has done here in the county, Meals on Wheels and Battleground used to be 5 days a week before the pandemic. How many days is it now? None. They had a real good dog and pony show over there. Richfield on Tuesday. I went there just before Thanksgiving, walked in the door, and there's nobody there except the volunteers. There ended up being 3 of us there, to get our meal. And up here, we can get 30 to 40 people. If you look at table 7, you'll see me, so causing these gals to do any more extra work because they do a great job, according to Al, is nonsense. Thank you. God bless America. Ho, ho, ho.
Thank you, Al. Any other audience questions?
there are none more from the audience.
Okay. If there are any public comments from those calling in, just a reminder to please press *6 to unmute yourself to speak. Clerk, do you
Hello,
see any?
Kimberly Albin
Okay.
here.
We hear you. Just speak up and
Was I
announce
called?
yourself.
I'm sorry. Was I called? I'm away from in person.
We hear you. Just announce yourself.
Thank you. Kimberly Albin, life citizen of Clark County. I live here in La Center where my mother was born. I read last week about the PSAs and the EXIDY, EXIG, and the SES, your consent agendas, excuse me, when 5.1, 2, and 3, or excuse me, 2 and 3. So we're, again, following some, I'm kind of going through here. I was just at the Heritage Farm thing that Clark County Council or Clark County people are doing here in town. And it looks like the mayor will get say-so as to what these services are. There are consultant services. One of them is going to cost $175 per hour, but then also there's no end of an agreement where it says the total fees paid to the consultant per this agreement will not exceed $160,000. That's quite a bit for, even if it's a year. I don't know. It doesn't really say as far as I can see here. So I'm hoping that the mayor will have input from the public citizens, as I believe that they follow a socialist agenda, and I don't want them to do that. I'd also like you also to not affiliate yourself with Vancouver City Council, as they are members of the United Nations entity called the ICLEI, and that you should ask them to also get out of that membership immediately. It does not follow the original constitution that the people trust you folks to take and follow. So things that we're all doing here are basically following a socialist, Marxist, communist agenda. I mentioned this, the Association of Washington Cities, they're doing the same thing. I asked last week, you need to look at cities that are Republican and see what they're doing to survive under what we the people believe should be done, as you are voted in to represent us. And frankly, when the people wake up from their 3-year pandemic nightmare here, they're going to actually demand that you do follow what they have elected you to do, and they're going to find out that probably have not, and I know Vancouver hasn't. So I'm a Republican Party PCO for Les Center number 522. You can look that up on the internet and ask if anyone would like to contact me. Please do so by emailing me at people at AOL.com. And God bless America. I just want you guys to pay attention to what's going on here. We are not going to be a one world order. And unfortunately, there's a depopulation plan going on. I know there's a lot of citizens that have lost family members. They think it's from something else, and when really it's more than likely was from the jab for depopulation. Thank you. God bless you.
Excuse me. Forgive me. Any additional calls coming in?
Just quite a bit of people.
If there are any additional callers, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay. Clerk, are there any public comments to be read?
There are none.
Thank you. Brings us to the consent agenda, and I have been asked to move the PSA Exegy and PSA SES down for additional discussion and questions from council. So we will do that this evening under our unfinished items, number 1.9, items removed from the consent agenda. Would council present a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda, including the minutes and information. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. I would also like to remind everybody to speak directly into your mic so that the audience can hear, both here and on our calls. We don't always remember that part. Takes us to 1.6, presentations and proclamations. We have a proclamation this evening declaring January 9th, 2023 as Law Enforcement Appreciation Day in the city of La Center. Whereas we appreciate the extraordinary efforts and sacrifices made by law enforcement officers and their families on a daily basis in order to protect our schools, our workplaces, roadways, homes, visitors, and whereas the safety and well-being of individuals is important to the prosperity of families and communities, and whereas law enforcement officers throughout our communities are dedicated to protecting and serving neighborhoods, schools, families, and whereas law enforcement officers risk their lives each and every day in order to ensure public safety and enforce the laws of the land, and whereas the city of La Center community values the courage and devotion of our local law enforcement officers, as our collective prosperity depends on the integrity with which our law enforcement officers maintain peace and security. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Cerveny, do hereby recognize January 9th, 2023 as Law Enforcement Appreciation Day in the city of La Center and publicly salute the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. I have many of my family members that serve in both sheriffs and detectives and city municipal forces, so it means a great deal to me as well. We'll entertain a motion.
Casey, you want to do the honors?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second approving the proclamation declaring January 9th, 2023 as Law Enforcement Day. Thank you, everyone.
I figured the police officer should be doing that one.
Under Mayor's report, just like to remind everyone that the city offices will be closed December 23rd and 26th in observance of the Christmas holiday. City offices will also be closed January 2nd in observance of New Year's holiday. We also have a council retreat scheduled on Saturday, January 7th at City Hall beginning at 9 a.m. So just wanted to remind everybody to make sure that's on your calendar.
Thank you.
I would like to also take this moment to extend my appreciation to the staff and to our consultants for carrying us through a turbulent year at best, the ups and downs that we are working through, and as well as the many things that our mayor has done behind the scenes. Even though he may be absent, he's still diligently on that phone and interconnected with everyone. And he extends his regrets at not being able to be here this evening. But I appreciate all that he does and with such dedication for this community. He works very hard, much harder than I did when I was mayor. And I appreciate that. I understand the many different ways we get pulled throughout the day. So I just want to make that known. And that brings us to the attorney's report. Bronson?
Thank you. No attorney report tonight. Just want to wish everybody a happy holiday and enjoy yourselves and your families and be safe.
Definitely. Thank you, Bronson, and thank you for all you do for us. Council comments next. Councilmember Fox?
Good evening. It's nice to see everyone here. Mayor. Al, I like your hat. Thanks for the festive costume piece. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. I mean, it's been really nice the last couple weeks being able to go to music programs at the La Center Bazaar and going to see my boys in 4th and 6th grade. One is in band. We're so blessed with such great music teachers and being able to see our kids perform after so many years of being off. It was just such a blessing to be able to see them all. So just thank you to our La Center staff and the amazing music teacher and the Music Association and all the great volunteers that we have. It was just such a joy to see all the families out. Also, just a reminder to wear reflective clothes outside. It is so dark. And I don't even want to explain how I almost got hit on the tree lighting. Literally, very just from the police station to walking across in the crosswalk, and 2 cars stopped and 1 did not. So, you know, just yeah, people go fast. So lots of reflective gear. And other than that, yeah, happy holidays, be safe, and I look forward to seeing everybody after the new year. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Casper.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. I wanted to address a couple of things tonight. You know, obviously, I think everybody's aware there was an incident at the Last Frontier a few nights ago. Chief Richardson is going to have a little bit of information on that. But I did want to throw out my thanks to Clark Fire Rescue, who came out, Washougal PD, who was actually working in the city that night, Cowlitz Tribal Police that assisted, as well as Richfield PD, and the Clark County Sheriff's Office patrol that responded initially, followed closely by the Regional Major Crimes Unit, which consisted of CCSO, Vancouver Police, very likely battleground. And so there was just a ton of response for this incident, which is very appreciative. Also wanted to reach out and say that we wish the victims a speedy recovery. It sounds like all but 1 are out of the hospital now, according to the news. But I wanted to also say a special thanks to the citizens and the witnesses that were there. The ones that tried to stop the incident, but also the ones that reported it and gave the information, which allowed all of the responding agencies to actually be able to locate and apprehend the suspect. So, you know, I want to remind everybody that random acts of violence are still very, very, very rare, even in large cities, but it can happen. And the one thing that no law enforcement agency can be successful without is information. And if people don't call and people don't report and pay attention to what's going on, then they don't have any opportunity to actually solve the crime. So, you know, I know there's a bunch of keyboard warriors out there that are expressing their opinion on social media because that's just what happens these days. But I would encourage everybody not to jump to conclusions, not to criticize the response or the process. At this point, we need to trust the process, and the process worked. That's why that suspect is in jail. So I think everybody needs to just keep that in mind. And then I also want to make sure that we thank Chief Richardson, because he did come out that night and was on scene. So I think that is all that I had for tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Councilmember Boyle.
Oh, shoot. Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Casey, for that. I appreciate that. It was way more in depth than what I was going to say. So thanks for covering all those.
I remember what else I was going to say. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let's make sure that we still support our businesses. So after this, I plan on going and getting a hamburger at the Last Frontier. I'm not buying. I mean, I'll buy mine, but not. If anybody wants to join me there, you're on your own.
Anyways.
Sorry. Go
No.
ahead.
Can I go now? Yeah, I too would like to thank the first responders. Obviously, that's a pretty tragic event. And, you know, can shake some people up and whatnot, but agreed with what Casey said there about, we still got to try and support our community, and I'm sure there's measures being taken to, mitigate things like this from happening again, even though they're very unpredictable. Along with that, there was also a family outside of town that had their house burned to the ground. I think they lost everything along with a couple pets. So if you know them or know of them and can do anything to help reach out, I'm sure anything would be much appreciated. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to everybody that shows up here every week, or even if you don't, or if you come once, it's all great. But we appreciate the feedback. I'm available to anybody if you ever want to reach out, have a question, comment, concern, whatever it is. My email address is sboyle@ci.lecenter.wa.us. And other than that, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Sean. Councilmember Stroven.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I do want to echo the same thing that Councilmember Boyle and Casberg had said. I do want to make sure there's another shout out to the fire and rescue team. You guys did an outstanding job fighting a monstrous fire with volunteers in tow, and still had enough people here to cover the incident that happened that night at the casino or card room. So my hat's off to you guys. You guys did a great job. There are many people during the Christmas season that are unfortunately going to do without. I just want to remind everybody to think of those. And if you can help them out, please do. Even a simple phone call helps them out. A little cheery Merry Christmas, just thinking of you. It's a good foundation to go off of. And then Dennis, I don't normally direct anything towards comments, but you're always more than welcome to say my name if I've said something. I have no issue with it. I take full responsibility for anything I say. So, all right. With that, thank you, you guys. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Be safe. Thank you.
You bet. And my other hat, Councilmember Cerveny, will also extend immense thanks and appreciation and respect for everyone that was involved in responding to the tragedy. As everyone has said, they're so unpredictable that no one can feel terribly prepared for those situations, but everyone handled it remarkably well, remarkably quickly. And even the staff, from what I hear at the Last Frontier in New Phoenix, did very, very well stepping in, and the information was readily, as Casey commented, relayed so that we can get that person apprehended. So my hat's off to all of you. And for the fire, there were so many different entities that were involved with putting that fire out, from the water tenders on up to the first unit on site, and the neighbor, Frank Masna, who is feeding information to everyone. As they say, it takes a village, and you guys put your lives at risk every day when you go out for those things, and we truly appreciate each and everything that you do for us. And there's cookies and coffee over there, as I promised, and I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and thank you for everything that you do for our community, for coming to our meetings even when they're boring as heck, and for helping us learn as we go, and keeping us, on point, and when things go awry, so that we can learn from them and turn things around. So thank you for being a part of everything that we do. That will take us to staff reports, and first up is Chief Richardson for the police staff report.
Thank you, City Council and members of the public. It's a little lengthy tonight. I apologize, but I got a lot to cover, and I know that people are interested in everything that's going on. So anyway, let's talk really briefly about the stabbing at the Last Frontier Casino. As you know, that on December 12th at approximately 11:47 p.m., there was a stabbing at the casino at one of the card tables, and the suspect was a player at the casino that ended up stabbing 4 other people, one female victim and 3 male victims. The suspect immediately left the location and was later arrested by CCSO after a pursuit and pit maneuver off of Patton Parkway. I had the opportunity to watch the video at the casino. I've also had the opportunity to read all the reports. I just want you to know that night, City of La Center had a Washougal police officer that was working overtime in the city. He's actually Officer Woolridge here behind me. I read his report, and he did an outstanding job for something that it looks on TV, these things that look really simple, but they're just chaos. He was there after he got the call. He arrived within 49 seconds. When he got there, the suspect had already left. He was faced with a lot of people, either witnesses, employees, or victims, a lot of blood. And I know that when he got there, there was also a gentleman who was a witness that had a handgun that he had to disarm him and figure out what was going on. And I can tell you that he did an outstanding job, and I just want to thank you personally for what you did that night. Fire and EMS arrived shortly thereafter. They triaged the victims and transported everybody, and we're lucky that initial reports was 1 or 2 critical, and then 2 other people with stab wounds. When you look at the amount of blood that's at a scene like that, we're very thankful that people survived. One of the victims barely missed having an artery severed. So, if that would have happened, it probably would have been a different outcome. Again, with all of our mutual aid agreements, we had both Clark County and Vancouver, the major crimes unit came out. And in total, there were 13 CCSO deputies, 2 Cowlitz Tribal Police, 3 Ridgefield police officers, 19 Vancouver police officers, and 2 Washougal police officers, for a total of 39 law enforcement officers that were either on the scene or involved in the investigation. So that's a tremendous, tremendous response in our county. And we're thankful that we have relationships like that with everybody. And I haven't even been able to add the CRESA, because remember, CRESA, they're dispatchers and call takers. When you have something like this, every cell phone that's in that casino, somebody's on the line trying to give them information, doing the right thing at the same time that police officers are trying to get information, things are being broadcasted, and then shortly thereafter, the sheriff's department gets in a pursuit. And I can tell you, I've been around long enough to know that all these things like this, they take a lot of good, skilled, old-fashioned police work and a little bit of luck, because it's not that easy. People think it's really easy to spot the right car on the freeway at night. It really isn't. And I can tell you that the deputies that did that, tremendous job, and really controlled themselves at the scene. If you read in the paper, once the suspect was pitted, it was actually in there. This suspect basically sat there at gunpoint in his car and smoked a cigarette and was kind of just laughing about the whole thing. So that's kind of the mindset that we have of people in our communities. Anyway, I also want you to know that I personally, and I know that the mayor and city council, they appreciate the response. With any kind of incident like this, I write individual letters of commendation to everybody that's involved. So I will do that. And I also want to publicly thank all the law enforcement, fire, and EMS personnel that responded to this event. In addition, you've got to really thank the customers and the casino employees that responded and helped the victims who tried to take action against the suspect. And I can tell you, if you watch the video, that entire stabbing with 4 victims was over in 30 seconds. It's amazing how fast somebody with a knife can inflict that much damage. And so with that, and also another good thing, people actually stuck around and gave statements, which is something to say. It's a good thing. If you come from a big city, or a lot of times everybody disappears in the woodwork, and they didn't in this case. So that's my statement on this. If anybody has a question from the council, I'd be more than happy to answer what I can. It's not our investigation, so the investigation is being handled by the sheriff's department along with any other press information.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, and Mayor, then if they don't have anything, I'll go on into the rest of my report really quick. Just so you know, we still have stocking stuffers, Santa. And we still have those steering wheel locks. Please come and put them in people's stockings. As far as the Ridgefield contract, we have our first meeting next week with the city manager, myself and Jess Swanson over at Ridgefield to do the kickoff meeting to start working through this process with their consultant and have them come back with a study on the pros and cons of this contract, where we provide, they provide law enforcement services to the city of La Center. And then I'll move really quick, if you don't mind, into our crime report for November. November 2022, we had 13 crime incidents reported. We had exactly the same number last year at the same time, 13 incidents. Year to date, we had 148 reported offenses in 2022 versus 145 offenses in 2021. We had 3 related assaults in November. Obviously, in December, that's going to go up. I'm sorry, we had 2 related assaults and 1 violation of protection order. Both the assaults were juvenile related. Both were family members that were in altercation with another family member. I can tell you, we were having a discussion about that this last couple of days. A lot of juveniles are getting in, exhibiting assaultive behavior, sometimes at the school, but a lot of times at homes with parents that are trying to manage these teenagers, especially single parents. I see that quite a lot. So that's something we are working forward to in trying to resolve some of these issues. In addition to that, we had 10 property crimes. And I'm not going to go through every one of them, but the one that does stand out, last month we had another phenomenal response by law enforcement, and this was a burglary that was in progress. I believe it was over off 15th, and the homeowner was home but watching her security cameras, and she actually saw somebody in her house ransacking her house. And the neighbors ultimately found out and got involved in this the suspect who left the home, and they actually chased him, and he crashed his car, and there was another big search. But that one resulted in the suspect being arrested. $70,000 worth of property that was stolen from her was recovered, and that was a 13 police officer response and 5 dispatcher call takers in Cressa. And that was exactly the same thing. Multiple phone calls from multiple people. Wow. Some people reporting the burglary and neighbors calling in, and then this traffic accident that people were calling in. So it was all connected. So another great job by all of our partner agencies. We had 4 arrests last month, 1 burglary, 1 violation of protection order, 1 assault, and there's a mistake. I have another burglary in here somewhere, but it's actually it was a reckless driver. So that's their 4 arrests. Call response is down, both community and officer initiated responses. And that wraps up my crime report. If there are any questions, please let me know. Sorry it's fast, but I know you have a lot of business tonight.
Real quick, Chief. Theft of jewelry and firearm, known suspect. Does that mean you guys caught him for the 11/22/22?
We haven't caught him, but we know who it is. It's a ex-husband. And then there's a couple of vandalisms on there, one of which are homes under construction. And we had some additional ones this week, but we've already identified the juveniles in that. So that's one that's going to be the poor contractor. You know, he's trying to build these houses and people are going in and do thousands of dollars. Kids being kids, doing damage that costs his contractor a lot of money, but we're working on that.
Thank you.
What do you guys generally do when you go to a home and there's a single parent?
Melissa, can you bring your
Oh,
mic?
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, what's the general protocol like with the juvenile? Like, I mean, if they're obviously being super aggressive, what do you guys generally do in that situation? If it's obviously.
It depends what it is. Obviously, the last resort for us is because we had a juvenile recently that broke a parent's knee. So that was pretty severe. And that juvenile was taken into custody and was actually booked into juvenile detention. And then we let the legal process take care of that.
Is that up to the parent? Or
No,
not
something like that.
Okay.
Now, there's some things that are up to the parent, and then there's some things that we have a very, one of the things that I think maybe it was a good intention, but it really inhibits us doing police work with juveniles is the fact that if we detain a juvenile and we want to interview them, we have to give them a phone call give them a number and have them call an attorney, and there's a attorney service throughout the state that's on call, and they interview the kid, and then they decide whether or not this juvenile should talk to us or not. And it doesn't matter if the parent wants us to talk to the kid and to resolve this. If the attorney invokes the right to remain silent for the juvenile, there's nothing the parent or us can do. So it prohibits us sometimes trying to take these things like these vandalisms in a construction zone where ultimately the parent wants to meet with a contractor and work things out. In that particular case, it worked out because we didn't do the interviewing, we didn't do anything. The parent did the investigation and solved it for us. If we would have gotten the front end of that, we might have not gotten the same results. So those are the kinds of things that we try to give people resources if it's something that's minor. And, then we also try to work with the school very closely because the schools have resources, and a lot of the things that are happening in the home or in the school carry over to one another, as we all know.
Right, exactly. Like self-harming,
Yes.
those situations.
That mental health issues. I
Right.
mean, there's a lot of things in our community, like every community across this country.
Of course.
So that's kind of where we are right now.
Okay.
And, we're fortunate enough, we have a small community, and generally speaking, if somebody gives us a good description in a first name, we know who it is. And the schools work with us all the time. So,
Nice.
thank you.
Thank you.
Speaking of the schools, Chief, have we got any news on working with the school system, with you guys going by there and such? Anything new?
Nothing new with that venture. The superintendent and I have met quite frequently this year, and mostly our agenda this year so far has been school security and physical security, locking the facility, locking gates, that kind of thing. We're not there yet, and primarily because we only have 2 people, one of which is only here Monday through Thursday, and he's busy in itself. But I know that that's a priority of the council, and the superintendent and I've had discussions with things like that. But right now, our priority has been physical security of the schools.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Chief. Next is our Clark County Fire District report. And Division Chief Peeler will present the Fire District staff report. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. Is it on now?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Good evening, Council. I'm Ben Peeler from Clark Cowlitz Fire Rescue. I'm the Division Chief in charge of operations for the Fire District. So just kind of give a quick overview of the Fire District. Every time we come here, we like to re-emphasize just kind of the scope of what the Fire District does. A little refresher on that. So we cover about 125 square miles is the Fire District. We staff 5 stations right now, including the station right here, kind of across the street from here. That's our Station 23. And 1/3 of the time we're staffing an additional station, a 6th station also. And that's the station at the Clark County Fairgrounds. That station's been there for about 20 years. And until this year, it has not had a career staff there at all. So it's a kind of an underserved area within that fairgrounds community. So this year, at least through the last half of the year, we've been able to staff at 1/3 of the time. And because of the EMS levy that was just passed across the district in August, next year we're going to be able to staff that station full time. And one of the reasons why I'm mentioning that station, you're like, oh, that's a long ways from La Center. It's a system. Our whole system plays in together. Each station area has, each fire station covers an area around it, not just the city of La Center, not just city of Ridgefield. And the La Center engine, for example, within city limits of La Center, through November has ran 396 calls inside city limits of La Center. It's ran its total station area just under 900 calls for its station area. And then for unit responses, it's responded on 1,225 emergency responses. But when there's only 900 in that station area, what that tells us is second alarm fires or larger events where it needs to be a second due unit, or when the Woodland engine is out on a call or the Ridgefield engine's out on a call, it's this engine that gets pulled that way, that gets pulled out of its station area for any second calls or third calls that are occurring in those areas. So with the fairground station getting staffed full-time next year, what's nice there is that becomes the second due into Ridgefield. So a large area where this engine from La Center is getting pulled into Ridgefield, that's going to happen much less frequent next year as because of the EMS levy passing and as we're able to continue to upstaff and start that hiring process. So with that EMS levy, we're able to hire about 25 new firefighters and paramedics going into next year. We're actively in the process of hiring. We sent out 9 job offers for lateral firefighters who are leaving current departments to come work here. And they've accepted. They start February 1st is when they come online. And then we sent out 14 entry-level firefighter paramedic job offers, and they all start in March 20th is when they start. So once they get out of the academy and all the training, our rigs are going to be able to get permanent staffing of 3 people per engine with a paramedic on every company, plus that 6th company being staffed, which is significant within our community. And kind of that's a long way around. Say Monday night was a busy night as addressed earlier. The fire just east of town, pretty significant fire. It pulled 5 of our engines there. And fortunately, when the stabbing event occurred, engines had already been released from that fire, and we were able to do callback crews also. So when we have a major event, we call in on overtime, we call back additional crews and staff reserve fire engines. So we had a 3-person staffed engine that was able to come in and upstaff that night during that fire. So we had 2 engines at the Ridgefield station recovering. Our station by the golf course there is our headquarters station. That's where like all our extra air pack cylinders are, extra turnouts, extra gear, and extra hoses. So after fires, a lot of engines end up there recovering from the fire. So 2 companies were there, and then the callback company was available. So it was fairly quick. Thankfully, law enforcement being here. Unfortunately, those types of events, because safety until the scene is secure, fire and EMS don't engage. We immediately get to the area. We have to wait for additional information, confirm, because of the speediness of having law immediately available there. Our crews were able to immediately come into the scene and engage. So it was a fairly quick response. We had 10 firefighters on scene that night, and then 3 AMR ambulances. So another 6 paramedics, EMTs showed up. So 16 responders were there that night, and fairly quick response overall. We train for these events, unfortunately. We see them all over occurring. We don't want them ever happen in our communities, but we want to be prepared for it. Our crews were prepared for it, and there's always going to be after actions, always lessons learned from these events, which we're going to take and continue to improve and build on and get better. Something we did about 3 years ago was, at that time, our trauma kits only had, it was about 4 years ago, enough to take care of 1 significant trauma patient. And we added, after that, after some mass casualty training, some active threat training, enough equipment on the engine to handle 10 gunshot wounds and stabbings per unit now. So the 3 engines that showed up, those 3 engines had enough equipment to treat, to stop the bleed on up to 30 patients for just those 3 fire units that showed up that night. So any questions on the fire response with regard to the other night on that?
I have no questions for that, but I do, I was wondering, because I know Fire District 6 used to house that station there next with the sheriffs, and there were fire trucks in there. Are you guys just taking over the fire trucks, or are you guys bringing in new? How's that going to work?
Yes, no, yes. That's a jointly built station. That 179th right there is actually the border of Fire District 6 and CCFR. And District 6 ran their volunteer program out of there. CCFR, our citizens paid for half that facility to build it, and we also paid for the volunteer program. For any calls that their volunteers ran into CCFR area, we paid for that funding. But there was never an interest on their part to put career staffing there.
Right.
It's an underserved area for us, so we worked diligently over the last year and pretty much said we will be staffing that. And unfortunately for CCSO, they're really strapped for space. For the last 20 years, they've been able to come in and utilize a lot of the space that the firefighters haven't, and we've been unfortunately having to start shuffling them around a little bit. And hopefully all that's balanced out now, and we're done on finding that balance. But getting that engine there and getting that staffed is very beneficial to the community, especially the underserved citizens there
Mhm.
and stuff. So, any other questions about the fire district? What we've been up to? We have quite a few things going on between our community
We
risk
did build
reduction.
you the gate.
Pardon?
We did build you the gate that goes all the way around.
Yes. Yeah, we do have secure parking there. It's fenced all the way in, and it appears the electronic gate sensors are now working also.
When you see Chief Jackson, tell him congratulations from Tom.
Absolutely.
Please. Thank you.
So our community risk reduction program, our fire marshal work, and the community paramedic program we have, that's something we don't talk a lot about, but we actively try to prevent calls wherever we can. When we start seeing a person frequently call 911 or a trend start showing up, we have a community paramedic who's dedicated to the daytime and a social worker who works full time for us to go out and engage these homes and help facilitate any services they need in order to minimize 911 calls. Want to start reducing 911 calls. And we just received $1 million grant for a behavioral health co-responder unit as well. So with that $1 million grant, we're going to have through Beacon Health, they're going to provide the behavioral health specialist, and then we're going to provide the paramedic, and then they're going to do co-response on behavioral health type events as well. So we continue to pursue grants and different programs to just continue being the full service fire department that the community needs to have. So
I have a question. The units that you can get through like security departments where you can pay to have basically like a smoke alarm hooked up to the local fire department. So then if it goes off, it's not just for you in your ears, but it literally gets sent off. I've had that for the last few years, but obviously I've never really had to use it. But does that actually
you're a better cook than I am.
Yeah, well, I don't cook. That's why I know. I'm just kidding. A lot of Last Frontier cheeseburgers. I'm just kidding. Does it actually like quicken the response time that much? I mean, I'm assuming it would, but I mean, it would be nice to hear the actual. I mean, obviously the sales company is always going to try to sell it to you, but on your guys' end, is it?
Yeah, anytime there can be a monitored alarm system when there's an actual fire and nobody's home, call 911. It's going to get us way faster
Yeah.
because, and hopefully during the incipient phase of the fire. We'll take the fire at East Town on Monday night. One of the reasons that house burned down was it's in a rural area. Nobody was home. So by the time that fire got big enough for a neighbor to spot it, to see it and call in, and by the time we respond and get up there, the house is fully involved. So in that scenario, had they had a monitored alarm system, potentially their loss could have been significantly less because we would have then been dispatched on a fire alarm, gotten there, and it's like, this is a working fire.
Or they call and nobody picks up and try to do the security call and they'd say, okay, nobody picked up, we're sending the engines, and it could, even over a little smoke, it'll send it off, right?
Yeah. And a lot of times fires at night also grow larger because same situation, even in neighborhoods right here in town. For a fire to grow big enough that people see it or neighbors hear it or you get alerted to it. By then fires have a significant head start that a lot of times during the daytime those fires don't have because people are up walking around and see smoke and call it in.
Sense. Yeah, cool. All right, thank you.
You wanna?
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the update.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It was a great report and great presentation. Appreciate all you do.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful holidays.
Thank you.
You too. All right, Maria Swinger-Inskeep will present the Administrative Services Staff Report next.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Cerveny and Council. The November sales tax disbursement was $67,169, whereas a year ago it was $79,422. Last week, I attended the Legislative Outlook Breakfast in Vancouver, along with Councilmember Kasberg and Cerveny, and Brian joined us there. It was a great opportunity to meet other city leaders and hear about the upcoming legislative agenda. I also attended 2 trainings put on by the National Public Employer Labor Relations Association. The first one was entitled The Foundation of Labor Relations, and the second one was the negotiation process. Thanks to everyone who made the Christmas celebration a success. I have listed those people in my report. I'm not going to go over all of them, but also make sure to mark your calendar for next year's celebration, which will be on December 3rd. The 2020 and 2021 audit is complete, and the report was published by the State Auditor's Office on November 28th. The city had a clean audit with no findings or management letters, and thanks to the staff who worked extremely hard over the last couple of years to research the recommendations that were made by the auditor and implement the processes and procedures that resulted in a successful audit. And the next audit will take place in 2024 and will cover the years of 2022 and 23. And then the card room revenue was up a bit last month, bringing us past the $1.6 million mark for the year. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Maria. Any questions? Good report once again. All right, we have no ordinances, resolutions, or public hearings to come before us this evening. It brings us to item number 1.9. Those items removed from the consent agenda. And we'll begin with some comments and some background and history I'd like to share with council. Bring you up to speed on the existing contracts that we have with Janice Corbin for our HR services, and a little background on what all she's brought to the community and to the city in terms of improving our existing internal policies and procedures, improving the employee working setting and morale, improving the personnel procedures, job descriptions, hiring processes, and meeting the various legal requirements that we're now required to address in terms of our job descriptions, postings, and hiring processes, and meeting the diversity, equity, and inclusion needs that we have. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes that we don't see on a day-to-day basis. We only hear about issues coming before us at our council meetings, but there's a lot of work going on behind the walls that totally goes unnoticed and unrecognized. And I know Janice has led us forward in a very professional manner and done an amazing level of work and professionalism at each of those issues that we've had to address. I worked with her on various hirings and personnel issues, and she's excellent at giving you all of the in-depth information that a municipality our size needs in terms of the legal ramifications of what we have to consider when we're making decisions and doing anything related to employees. And it gets more and more cumbersome with each legislative year, it seems, and she's led us through those very well. So we'll begin with discussions on that contract, and council, if you have questions, please go ahead.
Is Janice with us virtually?
Yeah.
Janice, I just have a couple questions for you. I didn't see anything that was clear cut in for negotiations for the labor unions for pricing. Is that done by per hour, or is that included in the $4,000 per month?
Thank you for asking. It's included in the 4,000.
All right. I love the price, Janice. I got to tell you, it's pretty awesome. I'm impressed.
Well, you know, we've built a really strong team, and Maria has really worked hard to get up to date and familiar with what's going on. It's one of the reasons that she went to the labor relations training, because she participated or sat during the labor relations. And I think with the additional training and these contract negotiations that are coming up, she will be much more comfortable with that role. We'll still need to have an attorney on occasion, but you know, the objective is to get myself out of business And with a new staff that we've got, and we've got a great staff, we worked really hard to get the people we have. Eventually we will be able to just finish up some things we need to do. And, we have a different union now. The negotiations with the civilian group has been very professional. And so, yeah, I'm really pleased with the work that has been done, and I'm really pleased with where the staff is now.
Yeah, that answers my question, Janice. Like I said, thank you very much. I like seeing the reduction, and nothing against you. I just like to see us conserving money when it comes to high fees and such, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
Janice, this is Councilmember Boyle. I was just curious as far as saying that you're looking to get out of business, which is congratulations to you when that does happen. But with the terms of your contract, it says that it can be terminated with 30 days notice. And that's without penalty. Is that correct?
Yes, it's standard language. So thank you for asking. Yeah, I mean, I would just add that my job is to come and help organizations get back on their feet, make the changes they need to so that they are compliant with laws and regulations. We've replaced 3/4 of the staff to work with labor relations. Our big challenge this next year will be our policy manual still needs work. Again, legislation keeps changing. The performance evaluation system, we've done the management, but we need to finish with our other employee group. So it's made great headway. There's a positivity in the building. There's a positivity among staff. They're creative, they're smart. So my job is to help that land and get where it is, and then I won't be needed except on a rare occasion. And that is what I'm supposed to do.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for asking.
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Melissa?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay.
You want to pass them one at a time? Or?
I think we can take each one at a time. So motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the PSA SES contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the SES contract, consulting contract. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Next is our consulting contract with Exigy with Jeff Swanson. And some history there is Jeff came on board and has led us through some really turbulent times and established an excellent professional relationship throughout the county, Southwest Washington, at the state level with our representatives and congressmen as well. He has brought millions of dollars back to this community for us on the 4th Street widening project, for example, both the engineering design and the additional funding for the construction, and that those negotiations will continue as we move forward with that project. He was also integral in bringing back the 1.2 million that will allow us to do the additional upgrading and renovations at the community center kitchen, as well as this building. Jeff has worked with us through the Cowlitz tribal relations, and that has been a very tenuous relationship in building those relationships as we go through each change in the tribal council and the legal council and all of the changes that come with that, and rebuilding those relationships each time the membership changes and the votes change. He is brilliant and excellent to work with and great at bringing information back to staff and helping them look at different issues that come before us, whether it's new development and builders that are coming to us to look at their suggestions and ideas and see if that has potential for the community and how we can compromise in various issues and rebuild a stronger tax base for the community and build our businesses, which is critical for this community going forward. And without Jeff, we really would be struggling without those funding that we've been able to get for this community and the growth that we've been able to establish and the respect that the community at large and the city council has gained throughout the area with others in our relationships. So I will now open that up for additional questions from council.
You guys want me to start, or do you guys want to start? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. I do have some questions.
Actually, I'll just ask one real quick before, along the same lines of what I asked Janice, as far as terms of your contract, does it follow a similar suit? I guess I didn't, oh, it does say the same thing. Okay. All right, well, answer my own question. Must not have gotten down that far.
Jeff, I guess to begin with, would you like an opportunity to add to what you brought to the community? I mean, there's so many things that I didn't even mention that you can certainly have that opportunity.
I think what we're looking at for the coming year, really 3 main areas of work with the tribe, continuing to work economic development issues, and the upcoming legislative session. And we have some, you've
new legislative.
Seen the legislative agenda we have. It's pretty ambitious. We're looking for significant dollars to construct some capital projects. And so we'll continue to pursue that. But in the past, we got funds so that we could make one of those projects shovel ready. And so we're just looking for the rest of the construction money for East 4th. We need to tee up Pacific Highway, and that's going to be a multi-year effort to try to get that one funded. Community center, this building that we're sitting in, the tenant improvements, was something we got out of the last long session. And so additional lift this coming session is we have new relationships to forge because we have different representation in the legislature than we've had previously. So a lot of work to do there, a lot of work with the tribe. The tribe has acquired a lot of land up at the junction. They have some things they want to talk with the city about and work with the city on. We've got other parcels that are not owned by the tribe that have some activity going on those as well. So a lot going on. Should be another pretty busy year for us.
Definitely. Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff, what was accomplished in 2022? What have you accomplished being the community development director for 2022?
So 2022, what I worked on personally, we worked a lot on trying to finish out the Riverside Estates project. That's something I've been involved in since early 2019 at the mayor's request. And then we've got some interest in a parcel up at the junction with some hotel development, potential hotel development, restaurants, and then of course Minute Management continuing to maintain contact with those property owners on that parcel. And then tribal relations also involves economic development as they've acquired land. We've talked about different concepts that they would like to propose up there.
You played a significant role in the Riverside Park coming to fruition as well.
Yeah, it was really a huge team effort, and hats off to Bronson because there's been a lot of legal malaise involved in that entire project. And so Bronson's put in a lot of time and effort working with with a receivership process and with attorneys for the various parties as we've hashed that through. But yeah, I had a lot of involvement with the principals on the project in terms of fleshing out some terms and conditions and concepts for the project.
Are you willing to up your hours for the city of La Center for the coming year for the 160,000? Kind of give us a dedicated like 40 hours or so a week?
That's not what the contract says, though. The contract says that he'll work at $175 an hour with a cap of 160,000 unless it's already agreed upon ahead of time, right?
Right, it does do that, but I was asking as a side note, and the only reason I'm asking it is because I did pull the invoices for it, and I've totaled up the hours of 3 months, just 3 out of the 6 months, and we're getting about 88 hours a month of service for $160,000. In 2021, it was $176,000. So when I go
Previous
in,
contract, I believe he was charging on a monthly basis rather than an hourly basis, right?
So since 2020, so 2020 and 21 and 22 have all been on an hourly basis. And the rate for those years has been 150. And the first year that I did work for the city was on a retainer basis.
Right.
And the equivalent rate, in theory should have been 150, but the effective rate was much, much lower for the hours that I was putting in. And so, yeah, the last 3 years have been at 150 per hour. That has not adjusted, basically 13,000 per month. If I've gone over 13,000 per month in terms of hours and costs generated, I've written that off. And if you look at legislative session, so early in the year, look at those invoices, you'll see there are some significant write-offs to stay under the cap amount in the contract.
I want to say something. I know what your question is. In 2021, when he went over the $13,000, it's
Yeah.
because he had 2 contracts. So he was working on the police assessment in addition to his contract. So that's why.
yeah, that was $20,000, right? Yeah.
I can't remember
Yeah.
what
It
his
was a
portion
$20,000
was.
reward.
His portion was 10, I
I
believe.
think mine was 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that still puts it at 166. Well, and the reason I asked that is because when I was pulling some of these statements, as you know, I'm a consultant as well. I know how this kind of works, but I was looking at some of them and it was just like review composed general email correspondence for 3 hours and 15 minutes. Several of those, 2 hours, an hour and a half. And I have to write up significant things as well, especially technical, doing network engineering. And I'm having a hard time grasping what has taken, in fact, it's quite a bit through each of these months, emails that are that long. So my question to the council is I'd really like to see what some of these emails are stating that are taking 3 hours to be written. I mean, that's a lot of time, and that you're talking about $300 to $500. And it brings up another question. I mean, some of the stuff that you were just talking about for 2022 that was accomplished, isn't that some of the stuff that Brian and his department has taken over or capable of doing? Because I have noticed in the last several months him giving the presentations for the development of the community.
I remain involved in the economic development and the community development aspects. Since Brian's come on, a lot of the those responsibilities that I had previously have transitioned over to him, but I remain involved. Yeah. In terms of the emails, a lot of them are, it's not necessarily that I am drafting materials. I may be doing extensive review of documents. Some of the attachments that are sent to me are rather lengthy. I may be doing some research on some of those in addition to,
Yeah, you put those
responses
in here.
and so
Those
forth.
weren't the ones I was bringing up. These were more general email correspondence.
So general things, from the county, the urban policy board, urban county policy board that distributes the community development block grants throughout the county. I've represented the city on that since 2019. Those tend to be rather intensive.
Right.
And I don't have too many examples off the top of my head, but I'm happy to pull those and go over them with you if you'd like.
So is our Public Works Department are they not capable of doing a lot of this stuff then, to even cut down the hours more?
Talking about one person.
Well, this one person does a lot in our community already. I do see that. That's what my question is. Yeah, are you capable of doing a lot of this stuff in order to minimize the hours that Jeff is billing for?
I guess, my understanding as I've sort of transitioned into this role is that it's Public Works and then taking over, sort of the day-to-day community development operations. I think as Mr. Swanson mentioned, that's sort of what's happened here. So, we're trying to keep him in reserve for when we need sort of that extra
Remember
horsepower.
to move the mic close to you.
Sorry. So just trying to keep Jeff, available for when we need, something that's beyond the day-to-day land use sort of items, which I think is in the absence prior to when I was here, he was really working on that day-to-day stuff. So, it's kind of hard to answer the question without, knowing sort of specifically what projects are coming up. But,
Sure.
I think certainly the staff is capable of handling that day-to-day and then, coordinating with Jeff as necessary on, larger projects or projects with extensive history like Riverside that he's been involved in.
Right, as necessary. And the reason I bring this up, Council, is because I also went on to AWC and I was looking around. The city of Sultan, Washington, population 5604, is one of the cities that is hiring for a community development director. The range is 113,000 to 131,000 for a city that's 1,000 or so bigger than ours. And this is a full 40-hour dedicated person that they're trying to fill. Now, whether they get that same amount when the contract negotiations come down, that's another story. But it is advertised at that price on AWC. So, and I understand, Jeff, you also do lobbying as well, right? I do get that. 88 hours a month. How much time do you think you spend for lobbying?
It depends on the time of year it is. If the legislature's in session, it is significant. When they're not in session, it's significantly less, but there is, some ongoing contacts, but the hours are much less.
Okay.
Jeff has provided this community with hours and hours of service. He's available to both the mayor and myself, emails, phone calls, and providing immediate response to every issue that comes before us. And community development, he's been excellent at meeting with the various potential business vendors that are now approaching the community, making those initial relationships and helping us look at information that they bring forward and look at our policies as well as our codes and understand where we need to work with the Planning Commission to make changes, to bring more business to the community, and to now at this juncture, when we've already got a January 7th retreat in which Jeff is scheduled to facilitate, we knew that coming into this meeting, it feels a little out of sync with the direction we need to be going for the community. And some of these questions I actually find unprofessional and rude to be bringing them forward at this point.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do, though, is ask questions, especially when it
You
comes to a
could
contract
have
and spending
given
the city's money?
Jeff Swanson a heads up on what questions you wanted to ask so he could stand there and answer the questions and not have you attack him.
I haven't attacked him.
Yes, you do. You come across
council
with
member, I have.
really rude and disrespectful.
Okay, well, if I'm coming across as rude and disrespectful, I do apologize, Jeff. I do recognize some of the stuff that you've done for the city. I'm not disputing
I
that.
disagree with the chair, the mayor.
You're not allowed to have this interaction, Kimberly.
My thoughts are is that it is our responsibility to question where every dollar is spent and how it is spent.
I'm not
And
arguing
that
that
is-
matter.
But that is what I'm bringing
But do
up
it
here.
politely.
I believe I am doing it politely.
I don't.
Well, I'm sorry, I disagree with you.
That's fine.
And
But
I'm
I
gonna
want to be on
continue asking
record.
my
I know
questions.
you're going to continue, but I also want everybody to know that to provide our consulting and our staff with a heads up on what questions you wish to ask so they can come prepared, not cut them off at the knees.
Sure, but you also just got done stating to me that I should,
Be
you know,
polite.
because that January 7th is coming up and we already have that there, that I should just be rolling with the punches?
No.
Council member, that doesn't make any sense to me.
You were the one that agreed to have the retreat and have Jeff facilitate at the last retreat that we had.
Okay. And
So now we're going to try to barrage him with questions that could have been asked earlier than now.
well, this was also posted late after, or what,
Friday.
after noon yesterday. No, I
No.
just found of it Friday, and I had a screenshot of the agenda off the web yesterday, and it was not on there at the time.
The
In fact, somebody else
materials that
called
we
and
were
asked me and
sent
said
had
about
it.
and I didn't have anything. So my questions started coming in late yesterday, and I had to wait for answers and responses, which I got this morning when I got back on the email.
disagree
So that
with
gives
there.
me exactly 12 hours to start doing research and start asking my questions.
I don't agree with you there.
Then don't agree. I'm fine with it.
Fine,
I'm telling the
answer your
honest truth
questions.
from my
Ask your
perspective of what I've
questions and
seen.
let's move on.
Well, and it comes back to the council. I mean, as far as you guys are concerned, for me, I do have a problem with 88 hours for $160,000, and I always have. And it's nothing new. Jeff, you're aware of this. It's been questioned before.
Let me jump in and say a couple of things, maybe get this meeting back on track. I do agree with Liz. I think some of these things should have been asked to Jeff directly, not in the context of the meeting. It is our job to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible with the funds. There's no issues with the questions. I just think that Jeff should have been asked that offline instead of directly in the meeting. The other thing that I have learned in this last year as being a council member, and then my experience working with the county, is it is no longer a privilege to be a public employee. The privilege of being a public employee is over. When the economy is good, everybody screams away from it. When the economy starts to dump down, then people start coming back and applying for public employment. What happens at the same time is the quality of the applicants drop down. And if you look, you can look at any public employment, regardless of whether it's a top management job or the very bottom paid employee, right now still, and will continue to be this way, is it's hard to find good people. It's hard to attract good people to apply, but it's also even harder to keep people in the process. And it doesn't matter whether it's a police officer, whether it's an HR director, whether it's a public works director, a city manager, all across Clark County right now, they are having a very, very hard time trying to fill any public positions. And by the time you go through the process, they've already taken jobs at other places. So you have to look at how much is it going to cost to recruit, how much is it going to cost to train, and then what are we going to lose in the meantime. And I think that dollar amount is well in excess of $160,000. The experience that Jeff brings, the ability to have them make the answer. There is nobody that could take his position. The reason the job in Sultan or wherever it was is still open is because there's going to be very few people paying for it. City of Sultan has been looking for a police chief for months now and doesn't have applicants for it. Camas had to go outside and to try and recruit a police chief, and we still don't know for sure if there's going to be one that is selected. The people that are in the top numbers might be in a process somewhere else. The city of Camas had to do a second recruitment for city manager. The city of Vancouver has had to do a second, they haven't even started the second recruitment, but they went through a full recruitment for assistant police chief. He's got 2 openings right now and they can't fill them.
Right.
And those guys are getting paid well over $200,000 a year. So again, the same kind of thing happens regardless of whatever the city position is. So in my opinion, I think the contract is reasonable simply because it would cost the city far more than that to recruit, hire, and train a new full-time person to do that. And I'll give you another example of what this kind of conversation does to employees and staff. At the Clark County Council meeting 2 weeks ago, the sheriff-elect John Horch asked for a new chief's position because when the county split from the jail, they took one of those chief positions. And so Sheriff Horch only had 2 remaining chief jobs. He requested a 3rd chief job be created to run administrative services. The chair of the Clark County Council said, well, who are you going to have to fill this spot? And he said, I have a person named, and that'll create a vacancy at the commander's rank. And she said, well, why can't that person just do that job right now? And as a person that holds another one of those jobs, I was extremely offended by her comments, by her lack of education about the system, and not even bothering to think that somebody can just take on a whole nother administrative job. So I feel for Brian in this case, because that's how I felt last week when she made that uneducated statement about, well, why can't this guy just do both of those jobs? We're already doing multiple jobs. I know Brian is at the same time. So I know you're trying to do the right thing, Tom, and I appreciate that. But I think you're wrong in this case.
Okay, well, and I disagree on that, Casey. I don't think a comparison for police and development directors is a good comparison, especially in the state of Washington when they're not supported.
Which is why I said it doesn't matter what the position is. Those are the ones that I have firsthand knowledge about. But I know that city management, HR directors, the county just lost one and we're trying to do that. The sheriff's office tried to hire a HR specialist and we lost 3 of them to private sector jobs before we could even get through the process. So it's public employment in general.
One of the things that we'd asked about back in the April meeting was, is there a way to transition into a full-time employee and transition away from contractors, right? And this is not a step towards it at all. So when does that begin?
No, you
Can I?
Janice, come on. I thought it was.
Yeah, I would just want to add that you would be paid. First of all, one of the reasons that you pay the price you do with Jeff, and or if I were working more hours, is because of the experience we have, and it takes us less time, frankly, to do some of the things that even if you hired somebody, it would take more hours. So you really are paying, just like if we had to buy someone who does the work that you do, Councilmember Strobin, you've been doing it for a while. It would be easier for you. You've got the terminology, the resources, you've identified subcontractors to help you, whatever the case may be. That is the same for both Jeff and I. I've been doing HR for 40 years. So I can tell you in a drop of a hat what we can and can't do. And I work all the time to stay current. And we would not be able to hire a community development director at this time. We can't even hire a wastewater operator right now. There are 26 of those jobs available. We're having real problems hiring in the public sector at all. And that's true in the private sector too, but definitely in the public sector. So I would just add that we would not be able to go to that at this moment. And Brian, who I think is very capable for sure, has a lot on his plate with wastewater, public works, and that type of deal. So I would just add that as a reference. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
Is this something that we could possibly table for like a special executive session, or is this something that needs to be decided right now?
I don't think we can afford to.
I'm not,
I
I'm
do
not
think
saying that
that-
necessarily,
I do
but just
think that
maybe
we
for
need to
more
work
education.
towards that, and I agree with Tom that getting city staff is the ultimate goal that we need to get to, but it just, now is not the time.
I think the real question that we should also be asking too is, okay, Brian, you've been in your role for about a year now, right? So our goal should be, asking the question, are you guys feeling comfortable working as a team? And obviously you feel like you're having to reach out to Jeff less and less, and you are feeling stronger on your own, but obviously you're always going to need to be supported by somebody eventually, right? Whether obviously someone in his position or another employee, if down the road, right? So do you feel like, obviously it sounds like a lot less contracted hours are being billed, right? I mean, no, you're saying, I'm talking about projected, do you see that being less in the next coming year?
I think this is an unfair dialogue to have with Brian.
Oh, I'm just wondering, like, how's the teamwork going? And as far as that's what I was just.
I mean, the interactions with Jeff and Brian have been excellent, and they continue to work very strongly together on all of the issues that come before us, and that will continue to go forward. And the education and experience will come with it. But right now, Brian's got his hand full trying to get fully staffed and deal with the additional growth that's coming to this community and the various permits that come before us. And so it's a very strong partnership that they've been able to develop. And as we continue to see the transition, Brian's been able to take on the reporting of the community development and everything that's going on in this city. But we'll continue to see that transition take place in the coming year. What is most critical for us to remember is, as Jeff has already said, we've got new legislators before us that we're really going to have to network hard to make our stories well known and our needs known when we're competing for those state and federal dollars for this small community. So in order for us to continue to move ahead with the business development and everything that we need ahead of us, we're going to need that expertise. And I don't know how much stronger I need to express that, but Jeff has the package together that can carry us over the finish line, and he's proven that time and time again.
And I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, like, your professionalism is outstanding, and you've always been pleasant and a pleasure to work with. And I think that maybe where Mr. Strobin is coming from, and just any questions at all, would just be from an education standpoint. And that's where the question that I brought up, is this something that we can discuss somewhere else in a little bit different atmosphere where we're not?
So
I don't really have it.
there's an exception to the Open Public Meetings Act for evaluating the qualifications of a person for public employment. Here, what you're talking about is not really qualifications. There's an issue that I hear as to whether or not Mr. Swanson is qualified. You're talking about dollars and cents and hours worked and that kind of thing. And that's not appropriate for executive session.
Okay. And Jeff, you are qualified. That was never in dispute. It is dollars and cents what it comes down to, in my eyes.
I do want to make one comment about when you have an employee on, our current rate of benefits is 45% of the salary. So we have to remember that Sultan may be hiring, but 45% of that, it's actually more than what Jeff's contract would be.
Understood, but
Yeah.
we'd also be getting 160 hours of labor time too.
But they also have vacation and leave and things like that as well. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Now what do we do?
Entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve PSA Exegy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the PSA with Exegy Consulting. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carried. Any further unfinished business to come before us? Well, I would like to close with thanking everyone for attending once again and wishing you a very Merry Christmas and a safe and healthy New Year. Thanks, everyone. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
You all walk by the Salvation Army.